pop culture with DJs in singing, graffiti art are expressed every day within the inner cities of America and the world. You are not doing hip-hop, you are hip-hop.
Woo, we are having all the things over here today. Okay, so I'm not going to stay here too long because I want to get into this topic and get things going. However, I do have to say, because a person reminded me that I should tell people that Guuuuurl Listen is on Amazon Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio. So you can catch it there. You can also catch a replay on Indie Soup Media. That's on Friday nights because that's what we do. So I want to make sure I share that because sometimes I forget to share it and I got to do better. So with that, because I have a guest today and I want to get into this topic and give myself enough time, I'm going to play this intro and then we'll get into it. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. It is Gwendolyn, GR Houston Jack. You are watching a live edition of Guuuuurl Listen. So it's Friday 4 o'clock, which means a couple of things. One, it is that G is Fire Friday. Is that what that means? Yes. So we're going to start here. We're going to do a live edition of Guuuuurl Listen. Then we'll roll over to Indie Soup Media at 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central for replay, but also for a new episode of Ladies Listen Up at 7:30 Eastern. We're talking about body types. We're talking about the body because we got to talk about it. We have a lot to talk about. The month of May is going to be stacked. I will tell you that right now. And before I forget, we're having a sale at the Veiled Vault. We're doing 21% off. Why? Because Prince Rogers Nelson died on April 21st. And so because of that, I'm doing 21%. It's a good number. I mean, it's better than 20. I mean, I could do something else. Who knows? But for the time being, it is going on for a while because, you know, we celebrate purple all the time. So let me get into what I want to get into. We are talking about imposter syndrome, as in who is the effing imposter. My mother's here, so I'm watching my tongue because I want her to be here. I want her to hear this message because mother always has great information to share. And so we're doing PG-13 today. It's for you, Ma. It's for you. And the good thing is, because it is about imposter syndrome, you guys know I love having guests. So let us welcome our special guest, Aicila Lewis. I love the crowd. The crowd's going wild. The crowd is going wild. So yeah, shout out to my mother who is here. And shout out to my compadre. Danny is here as well. Happy Friday to you, ma'am. Now, Aicila, I think most of our crowd knows who you are because we have a place where we talk about conversations that are not safe for the dinner table.
Yep. That's our little project.
It's our little project. Now, we have done extremely well because the last time we got together, well, a couple of times, we talked about meritocracy. Mm-hmm. And we went some places, if I can say so. And I will say this. I appreciate that you are always available to have these conversations because we don't have them enough.
Yeah, agreed.
in my head, and we need to start having them. And so when I think about meritocracy, I cannot help but slide into talking about imposter syndrome, which I will tell everybody right now, I get agitated. I am committed to keeping my attitude in check. Okay.
But not all the way, please. Just not all the way, because your fire is fantastic. It is fantastic.
it has a place, right? Now, just in case you guys don't know, you can connect with Aicila on LinkedIn and Instagram and YouTube, and we'll share this again at the end. She is an extremely snazzy lady. Extremely. So I want you guys to get a chance to chat with her and learn more about her, but we're going to get into our conversation. And one thing that we always do on Not Dinner Conversations is we like to share with you a definition. Now, let me give you some quick background really, really fast. Imposter syndrome was not imposter syndrome. Yeah. Imposter syndrome was a study done by two women, which we'll talk about, and it's called imposter phenomenon. Now, people think it's funny, but words matter. Okay? Yeah. They do. When people say, hey, Aicila, where are you from? She's like, oh, I'm from Houston. Like, oh, I'm from Houston too. And Aicila would say, oh, what part of Houston? And I would say Baytown. I'm like, yeah, so Baytown is not Houston. You know, that's a whole other place. It's the Houston area. Mm-hmm. It's not Houston. It's the same way that when people say, well, aren't you in Dallas? I am in Arlington. Mm. It's not Dallas. It has its own zip code. It starts with an A. We are not even close. We're like, what, 30-some minutes away? No. So the interchanging of words, mm-hmm. It's funny. We have to be careful when it comes to how we're describing things. And shout out to Dr. Tachi, who is here as well. Let's get into this definition, shall we? All right, so here it is. Phenomenon, right? So it's an object or an aspect known through the senses rather than by thought or intuition, the temporal or whatever that word is, object of sensory experience as distinguished from phenomenon, a fact or event of scientific interest, susceptible to scientific description and explanation, or it could be a rare or significant fact. Okay. Or an event, right? Mm-hmm. Phenomenon. Because some weird, like they talk about like seeing the glaciers move and how they move sometimes. Phenomenon, mm-hmm. Right? There's a number of phenomenons that we have all experienced, right? It's just some stuff, but it's like, you know, it's some different things. Let's talk about syndrome really quick. Okay. A group of signs and symptoms that occur together and characterize a particular abnormality or condition. A set of concurrent things such as emotions or actions that usually form an identifiable pattern. Okay. Now, me personally, they don't sound like they're the same thing.
No, well, and I was thinking about this when you were sharing this earlier, that the phenomenon, right, that's an observable fact. So we see this in people. Whereas syndrome almost makes them responsible for it. So it takes something that people are experiencing and it says, oh, this is your thing. Mm-hmm. I know we're going to get into it a little bit later, but to go back to what you said about words, when I was working in the gay community in Boulder, Colorado, we actually had a very strong program to talk about when we submitted grants. We wouldn't say a young person is having issues because they're gay, because that's not actually why they have issues. They have issues because there's a stigma against being gay that they suffer unfairly from. And that's a community issue. They bear the burden of a community issue. It's the same thing with racism. People of color, Black people bear the burden of a community issue. And we as a community need to take responsibility for it. And if we say that it's a problem you're experiencing, that takes it off who's actually responsible and who has the power to fix it. So I find the syndrome versus phenomenon to be a very interesting change, because a phenomenon is something we see happening, whereas a syndrome is we're making it about this person has this group of things going on, and it feels like, yeah. So I know you're going to get into it, but that just came up for me when this whole process we were talking about it.
Well, let me add the do you know, because they did this quick little fun fact on there. They were saying combining its two Greek roots, syndrome means basically running together. Mm-hmm. So when diagnosing a condition or disease, doctors tend to look for a group of symptoms existing together. As long as a set of symptoms remains mysterious, it may be referred to as a specific syndrome. But if that name is used for a while, it may become the condition's permanent name even after an underlying cause has been found. So today we have Down syndrome, acquired immune, deficiency syndrome, Asperger's syndrome, carpal tunnel syndrome, chronic fatigue syndrome, Tourette syndrome. Okay, so I get it. And since mental conditions often turn out to have physical causes, syndrome is used in psychology as well as in medicine. Okay. I must point out where they talk about disease. Because it can be an illness, something that's medically attached, right? But they talk about how some things are mental, it has physical causes, like they go together. So I mean, I understand that. Okay. But syndrome to me it has a different feel versus phenomenon, because phenomenon is like, ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Right? Can't really explain it. I see it happening, but it's still interesting.
Yeah.
So let me tell you how I got here, people, because Aicila and I, like I said, we're talking about meritocracy and how this current regime wants to talk about meritocracy and hiring people based on merit, getting XYZ based on merit. And I was like, okay. However, the people that we currently see are so far from being qualified. I don't understand how anyone could say that is the picture of competency.
I mean, I think you do understand, though. Like, I mean, I think you've seen it before, and
right? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I mean, every day, almost like every hour of the day, there is something else that's happening. Something else that's happening that says, this is why we know we're not operating as a meritocracy. Because old boy who got that job,
yeah.
And the guy who got that job, no. And that chick who thinks that we can just go around and get chickens to have eggs because that'll bring down your egg prices, yeah. No. And the lady who's over the Department of Education thought that, what'd she say? She thought that AI was A1. Like,
it's a steak sauce.
It's a steak sauce. Okay. So, when people talk about having imposter syndrome, I will tell you my stance right now, and then we'll get into it. I don't understand how you would ever get into a place of saying, I am less than. And the only way that you could believe that you are less than is that you have to buy into a couple of lies that have been told to you all your life. One, that white heterosexual men are the definition of competency. And when we talk about meritocracy, they are the poster child of such. You have to believe that. You have to believe that because you're not this guy, you will never measure up. You have to give into that lie to buy into the rest of this. That's my stance. Now, my mama, she told us the good Lord didn't make any mistakes. Okay. And wherever you are, you're supposed to be there. So having that as my armor and my shield, when I walk into a room, you can't tell me nothing. Literally, you can tell me nothing. I'm supposed to be there. I'm here to help you out, right? And even when I go to places and people have a certain look or a certain feel, they don't have to get over it. Get over it, kid. Figure it out, because that's your insecurity showing up. Has nothing to do with me. But that is my stance. So when I talk to people who fight for the right of imposter syndrome, I get confused, because you're fighting for the right to say, no, I am less than, and I don't belong in this room. And I don't understand that. So before I go on, Aicila, do you have thoughts about imposter syndrome?
I think, or I should say, I'm clear. We are aligned in that I don't feel like it's actually So I don't think it's a syndrome per se. I think it's a cultivated insecurity. And I think that the lie that you're talking about is really subtly communicated to people. And that's part of it. Like we look at, just things like we have to have a Crown Act because as a Black person, you can't just wear your hair normally or you're told you're unprofessional. Or that student in Texas who got one of many, right? Who's been told they can't go to school unless they do this. And so I feel like in addition to your internal reality, there's the fact that there's all of this very subtle messaging that says to people who are not that white heterosexual man, you're not quite right. And that so that's why I call it cultivated insecurity. And it's not, you're not cultivating it, but every time you walk in, you're facing it. And if you don't have someone like your mom, who someday I hope to meet, because she sounds amazing. Like she grounded you hard. It's amazingly powerful in how you show up, but not everybody had that either. And so they have to learn it through experiences or honestly finding people like you who really know and see that and can model it. So I agree with you on that. I don't think it belongs to the person. Like, I think it belongs to the community. It's a community issue. And yet the people that still, what is it? It may not be my fault, but it's my problem. Like I still have to deal with it, whether or not it's mine to own. So that's kind of where I would sit, is in that middle place of, and how do we counter it? How do we together counter it so that when someone's embracing it, because I also see that too. There's this weird way in which people will grab onto, oh, I have imposter syndrome, and then they'll kind of lean into it.
Yes.
And that's all what you're saying. I'm 100% aligned there with you on that. I don't see that as being helpful to anyone. You have to disrupt that.
You have to disrupt it. And I have a friend who came on Small Biz Bites some time ago, and I'm going to play his clip later on as we talk about how do we combat it. Let me add one last thing as we say hello to our crowd and get some of the comments. As a person, as a Black woman, right? As a woman, I am, in my belief, fairly in tuned to the weapons being used against me, right? And there are a lot of weapons when we talk about like the war on women, visual, the messaging, all the things. This, I believe, is one of those weapons. It's one of them. And we just have to be careful to how we feed our mind, body, and soul. We got to be careful. I'm a Virgo, and I see some of these memes on Instagram and what have you, and I don't share all of them because some of them I'm like, and who put that out? That Virgos are so quiet and I'm so afraid and we're so shy, and like, no, we're not doing that. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm not putting my arms around that. That's a no.
Yeah.
Now, you might be shy. You might feel like you should be perfect. I don't have them feelings. I'm not that Virgo. Okay. So we have to be careful in what we wrap our arms around, but also recognize when somebody is using an average everyday event against you, you in a certain place.
Yep.
We'll talk about it. We'll get there. Hey, so shout out to DS is here. The food plane. DS is here. Hello. And he also says here that it can be both a motivator and a burden. On one hand, it might push people to work harder, strive for excellence, and keep learning. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about it. I like that thought. Let me share something that I picked up from Stanford University. Now, this is on their page, okay? The one thing I love about Aicila as well is that when we talk about topics, we actually research some stuff. We research both sides, all sides, okay? So we may be biased because everybody has biases, but we like to look at all of the arguments, right? So we don't just pick out stuff that work for us. So it's Stanford, and I thought, well, what do they say to their students about imposter syndrome, right? Now, they do say imposter phenomenon, which is more commonly known as imposter syndrome. And although some researchers prefer the less clinical connotation of the imposter phenomenon, it was first coined by psychologists Pauline and Suzanne. We know all of that. Now, why is everybody smarter, more accomplished, more put together, more advanced than me? When will they realize I'm not as competent as them? Do I belong here? Why should I be here when others from my community could benefit from this, or they're more worthy? Here's the part that got next to me. right? Because they talk about that it shows up when you get a new project, you have a new task, you get feelings of anxiety, you start procrastinating, you start over preparing, you're completing the project, and you get all these feelings. Okay, let me just stop real quick. If you have any job, I don't know how many times I went through all them feelings.
Mm-hmm. Right?
Like, how many times did I feel like, now I was a scholar in school, right? Elementary, junior high, high school, college. And even as a scholar, I was still a slacker. I would wait till like the last day and do a 24-hour project.
Waiting till the last day is not the same as being a slacker. I super don't see you as that.
It was the last day. I was like, oh, it's due tomorrow.
You're deadline driven.
It's like, yeah, I know.
Like, it's okay.
Dragging the feet to get it done. But everybody goes through that.
Mhm.
I don't know how many times I have had a position and I was able to create 3 of my job positions in my last career where I had to write the job description. I had to present it to the CEO. You know how nerve-wracking that is? And give myself a salary.
Wow.
Yeah, you're like, but never once did I say, I don't deserve it. I'm working.
Yeah.
And women do a lot of work. It's like, but it's a normal thing.
Yeah.
It's a normal thing. But here's the part that irritated me about what they were sharing. This is the part that I thought, I don't understand where this came from. So it says systematic discrimination and bias, including bias that is racial, xenophobic, gendered, etc., can create environments that induce imposter syndrome. Academia can be a hostile environment for minorities when microaggressions, stereotypes, and exclusive modes of teaching and learning are some of the triggers for imposter syndrome. Additionally, the culture around elitism, prestige at academic institutions can also cause these feelings. Therefore, simply being around other high achievers at an elite institution can cause imposter feelings. Okay. Now, Aicila, when these 2 white women did this study, they studied other white women. I appreciate how all of a sudden a study about white women has now moved into a place of, well, based on where you're coming from and you're coming to this really elite institution with other high achievers, and now you're feeling some kind of way. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe it's me.
I don't think you're reading too much into it. I do feel like I'm curious if anyone else has done anything else, or if that one original study on 40 people is still the whole story, because that's special.
It is special.
That's special.
It is special. I was like, I'm sorry, what?
I feel we should go stand at a grocery store and observe something, and then be like, "There's a not putting the cart away phenomenon that happens."
Right? I'm like,
children. I don't know. What's up with that?
Because I find it interesting that you go from 2 white women studying high achieving white women to, well, based on discrimination and this, that, and the other, as a minority, you may feel more of this. I mean, it can create more of it. But when did that happen? Like, I'm confused, because they never looked at us. They weren't studying Black people. They didn't study anybody Hispanic. They weren't doing Asians.
No.
That was not happening. But all of a sudden, because of this, you may be more prone to it. Let me get some comments. Hold on. Let me get some comments because I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, so Diaz says, on the other hand, it often leads to burnout, anxiety, and missed opportunities because people hesitate to take credit or pursue bigger roles. Also, at its core, it's a disconnect between how we see ourselves and how others see us. Breaking through it often means consciously acknowledging your wins, reframing failure as part of growth, and realizing that even the most successful people feel it too. Let us stop there, because I don't know how many times I go live or I host a photo session, I'm like, please don't let anything go wrong.
Mhm.
It's normal.
Yeah.
And we go live. How many times, Aicila? We're always talking.
Yeah. A few times a month easily.
And it's still like, ooh, ooh. And because we're going live, something can always go awry. Something can go like sideways. It is what it is. You just pick up the pieces and keep going.
Mhm.
But it doesn't mean that
You don't call like the way the cultivation of that anxiety or that fear. We can't choose how other people see, perceive, or behave towards us. But what your friend was saying, food plane, you can control how you affirm it, how you feed yourself, right?
Yes, you can. DS says combating imposter syndrome is all about shifting perspective and rewiring your internal dialogue. Instead of thinking I don't know what I'm doing, shift it to I'm still learning and that's okay. Growth doesn't require, was that perfection? Thank you, sir. And I like how Dr. Tachi is reacting. I just want to know. She says they don't care to say the people of the global majority. They do not. So I'm here with I like how Stanford took this study and went all the way to, well, you coming from where you're coming from and you're in this elite institution with academia as if the school I went to didn't prepare me. Okay, you know what, Gwendolyn, don't do it. Don't you do it, girl. Let's go back to this conversation. Because I'm liable to go off on some other tangent. All right, so who experiences it and what is the impact? Right, so it says that while Clance and Eames research concluded that women were especially vulnerable to experiencing imposter syndrome, other research suggests that minoritized people of different genders, sexual orientations, class, and race ethnic backgrounds also frequently tend to experience imposter feelings. Now, I have not checked that study. I'm gonna have to check that one. In addition, they talk about that there are personality types that are prone to it, people who are perfectionists, experts, highly skilled individuals, and students who struggle, may fake difficulties, and so on and so forth. Okay. I'm gonna say it again. In order for this to work for you, in order for you to wrap your arms around it, you have to believe the lie that is told about you. If you don't tell your story, somebody else will. Now, I love Trading Places. I watch it all the time. I love Dan Aykroyd. I love Eddie Murphy. And there is a particular line in the movie when they say, is something wrong with him? He says, of course something's wrong with him. He's a Negro. He's probably been stealing since he could crawl. Now, people are like, oh my God. First of all, it is funny, okay? It's the 70s. We get it. We can laugh at ourselves. However, on a serious note, those are the lies that have been told. That Black folks are lazy, that they can't compete in these elite institutions, that people who are Hispanic or Mexican have 5,000 babies like cockroaches and they're gangbangers. Or people who were Asian do this. These are the lies that have been told. You have to believe that lie to let this work for you. You have to believe it. That for me to be here, I just got lucky. Not that the good Lord put a really great brain in my body. Right? Not that. It's you have to agree to some of the narratives that are being told for this to work. For it to have an impact.
Yeah.
That has to be there. It's like, why would you ever agree to that? I'm confused.
I do think the propaganda machine is pretty effective. And I feel like there are definitely, if you're in a vulnerable place, it's kind of how people get recruited into a cult. Like, they've shown that, there's not a consistent background. It's more if you're in a vulnerable place and then someone comes at you. And I think that if you have enough bad experiences, then you might start to think maybe it's me. And it's tricky, right? Because a healthy thing, like let's say I have 4 failed relationships. Eventually I got to look, I'm the common denominator, right?
Yeah. I'm sorry to be the laugh like that. Yeah.
Like that's a thing. If that's your and so it's tricky because these things we were talking about, these you were saying before we started, these feelings we experience are, and sometimes our willingness to be honest and evaluate ourselves can be weaponized into you. Well, obviously everybody else, John doesn't have a problem with this. Why don't you? And it must be you. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I agree with you that it's a belief in the lie, but I don't think the lie is ever said directly to somebody. Yes, well, the messaging in the larger sense, but when you're in that moment, they're not saying to you, oh, you're black and we don't like black hair. They're saying you don't look professional. And then you have to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And that one is a little bit more elevated. People are more aware of that nowadays. But 20 years ago, certainly the mainstream white community had no idea that was being weaponized. I mean, the ones who were doing it probably did, but that we had to have that elevated into the larger conversation for people to understand, oh, wow, like this is happening and it needs to stop in a larger sense, because the propaganda and the lies are subtle. And they're not subtle to the person who's receiving it. Like, I know when someone's using that tactic on me, I know immediately, and it pisses me off hard. But somebody who's watching, it's what is it they call breadcrumbing? They don't use the whole thing, right? Like they use a tiny, tiny piece, and then you look crazy because you're freaking out. This is what happens to me. If somebody like pushes one of those buttons, I have had to learn to like be like, all right, because it bothers me so much, but I can't react to it. I have to approach it very differently because there's this whole container that's really well constructed. So yes, I agree. Someone has to believe it and they wouldn't, but I don't think it's laid out in a way that helps people to see it. Like, you're discerning and you had that background, but I don't know that everybody has those tools in their box. It's why I think it's so important to talk about it.
We definitely know that those tools are not available to all people. As Dr. Tachi says, don't mind them. Remember, they have to talk themselves into believing they are elite. Perhaps they truly have imposter syndrome. Ooh, I didn't even think about that, Dr. Tachi. I think about that. Yes. Okay. It's a great movie. Thank you, DS. It's a great movie. She also says, well, if you then believe that the global majority achieves based on their merit, despite roadblocks that are put in their way, it says that somehow you have been getting over and could be mediocre. It definitely says that. Now, here's what's interesting, as you were saying about the subtle messages. We are currently in a situation where some people, I'm gonna get my words together, are literally whitewashing history. All right. Black history is American history. You cannot separate the two. You literally, your people, not you, Aicila. I'm just
people though.
She's like, I get it. I'm the you see how we have this relationship? It's okay. But some people, these colonizers, stole intellect, excellence from another country, whole other continent, brought them over, right? Made money off of that intellect, made millions off of that, made patents off of that intellect. And then all the while, we're telling the story of, ooh, people are lazy. These folks are lazy. They don't do anything. Right? And then you look at all of the visuals, which is why many people, so many parents talk about representation, that Black girls, Black boys, Hispanic, Asian, Pacific Islander, there's a reason why a child needs to see his, her, their self on screen, in books, in magazines, in movies, on TV. There's a reason why they need to see it. And because if all you ever see is this one thing, that message holds true. It's like, I've never seen anybody who was Black who could do this. I didn't know somebody. I'm thinking back when President Obama got into office, and the kids who went to visit him in the Oval Office was like, "Oh, your hair is like mine." You know, like, we take that for granted. The idea of seeing yourself in all these different places can be easily taken for granted. Has a lasting impact. Now, in our household, you know, we had a lot of S's and Jet. So, you know, my parents, for a good part, they were blackly Black parents. Okay. They were blackity Black. So, you know what I'm talking about? Like, we didn't really have a lot of Barbies and stuff. That was not how that went down. With my my sister got a toy called My Child. She didn't get Cabbage Patch. She had a black My Child doll, little baby doll. So my parents were blackity black parents. Just saying.
I think it's important.
This is where that is. So hey. All right, let me get these last two comments. We'll get back to our deal here. It says, I can't think of anything lazier than spending money to steal people to build your country with free labor, but you didn't hear that from me. We did not, Dr. Tachi. We did not. We didn't hear that from you. So they talk about people who struggle and things of that nature. But I want to share some things really quick, because this is when I get a little animated, because Black women, they do a lot. Now we are at the bottom of the barrel, all right, in terms of the pay gap, right? We're at the bottom of the barrel, despite all the things. Not only are we dealing with being a woman, but we're a Black woman. And we know that there are some stereotypes that, oh my goodness, that's an angry Black woman and she's got an attitude and I can't. But yet and still, I'm taking care of your kids. So, you know what, Gwendolyn, don't do it today. We ain't doing it. So there's this finding that talked about the National Center for Education Statistics said Black women have been obtaining degrees at a consistently high rate for the last 8 years and counting. Information collected about the higher education among African Americans between 2009 and 2010 shows that Black women accounted for 68% of associate degrees, 66% of bachelor degrees, 71% of master's degrees, and 65% of doctorate degrees awarded to Black students during that time. Black women are doing some things. Now, here is the question, because people talk about, okay, well, where does this come from? Because I've been mentioning this this study. I've been talking about it. And here it is. So two white women, and let me make sure I'm clear here. I say that for a reason, okay? Because we say women were studied. Like, no, not all women were studied. When we talk about any kind of medical studies, not everybody is included in those medical studies.
Yep. Okay.
So we are being particular for a reason. We are being specific for a reason. But these two women, they created this term called imposter phenomenon. It was used to designate an internal experience of intellectual phonies, which appears to be particularly prevalent and intense among a select sample of high achieving women. Okay. That was it. Now, who did they study? The women they studied, they were like what? 15 undergraduates, 20 grads, 10 faculty members at a large southern urban university, 6 medical students from northern and southern universities, 22 professional women in such fields as law, anthropology, nursing, counseling, religious education, social work, and so on. They were primarily white, middle to upper class women between the ages of 20 and 45. 1/3 of them were therapy clients with specific presenting problems other than this imposter problem. And the other 2/3 were in growth-oriented interaction groups or classes taught by the professors. So they were just going over how how these women felt some kind of way when they were in certain situations. And they were saying like, hey, why do so many bright women, despite consistent and impressive evidence to the contrary, continue to see themselves as imposters who pretend to be bright, but who are really not? What are the origins and dynamics of such a belief, and what functions could be served by holding on to such a belief? And then they had the idea they fall into one of two groups, right? And some of it goes to family history. Some of it's family history, right? Now, I remember, God, I'm trying to figure out how to say it, Grace. But you know what? Forget the Grace. My roommate at NYU was a young white lady who had never been around Black people. In fact, she hadn't been around anybody with any kind of melanin, like none. Okay. So in this suite, in this one room was a chick from Jamaica, a chick who was Indian, and then another young lady who was Asian. You got the black chick, you got the white kid, right? This is us. Mm-hmm. And we would do this sort of culture night thing and cook and bring our own little dishes and stuff. She's like, well, I don't have any culture. I don't have any. But she had the hardest time because her sister got into Yale. And she wasn't good enough to get into Yale, so she got into NYU. And her mama gave her hell for it, who is also a professor, right? Mm-hmm. And so she kept having these problems. And I thought, what is wrong with you? Now, would I have put her as someone who had imposter syndrome if we had known about it then? I could have, but then I just thought, you got some family issues. That's what this is. Because then her daddy showed up. Her dad showed up with his new wife and his new children. And I was like, you need a counselor. Mm-hmm. You need like a family therapist. This is nothing to do with us having melanin, because she would have these blow-ups. And I thought, look, I don't know you like that. I know we got to work together in this room, but you're insane. Like, you need to get your stuff together. So, I mean, I'm just saying, she had a lot of other things. So they talked about in the study how there were some women in terms of family dynamics where the parents would pick one of the children and they would say, Billy's the smartest kid, right? Billy's the smart one, and Bob, you'll never be like Billy. Billy could do no wrong. And so Bob goes through life trying to do all the things, trying to match what Billy is doing, but he's never going to make it. So this girl, whenever anything came up, it was about her sister and her mama. And I was like, you need a counselor for this, man. Like, we're not built for this.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, that's not really, if we take that into account, it's not just like family dynamics versus, I feel like, an imposter. Like, if your parents have told you something, and I'm going to call it a lie, because clearly she's smart. She got an NYU. I mean, that's not like, it's not chump change, but it's not Yale. I was like, okay. First world problems, I guess. I don't know.
Well,
that's something different there.
It's a lack of emotional resilience, right? And I would say maybe emotional maturity that is consistent in the white women population. Like we are infantilized to a certain extent, right? And carry that banner forward of being dependent. So it is interesting to me that it was all white women that were in the study and that led it, because they're all in that mindset of not being accountable or grounded or self-affirming or self-empowered, right? Like, there's always this external that you have to be leaning into. And your experience with your roommate doesn't surprise me, because it's that same thing. It's that leaning into this moment of discomfort and deciding it means something about what other people have to do, instead of recognizing, oh, this is my discomfort and I'm the one that has to deal with it. This is a me problem, right? So I don't know. I think it's a general basic lack of emotional resilience and emotional maturity. And like you said earlier, when we were talking before, I don't want to tell anyone how they feel. I do want to tell them I'm not responsible for their problems, and I'm certainly not responsible for their feelings, in that, they, like you said, she has to take care of her own issues and show up as a full person, not as baby sister. She's not your baby sister.
Well, I can tell you, she didn't last long. She was in that room with us for like, what, 2 months? I think 2 months before she moved out, because she just couldn't take it. And I was like, bye. And so I ended up having a room all to myself, because we couldn't find anyone else to.
Good things happen to good people.
Right? It just happened to work out. So I was like, okay. And if I may say so really quick, because it's just one of those things, my mother came up to New York City, right? We had Hayden Hall. It was an old hotel. My mother went to the store. She got some Pine Sol. She cleaned. She scrubbed down the room. She waxed. She mopped and waxed the wood floors. Okay? That's what mother did. And I was like, okay, so we're going to be home. We're going to be home. She wanted to make sure it was clean. So I give it that. Shout out to Gary, who is here. What you mean wonder why? First of all, it was not me. I can tell you that right now. It was not Gwendolyn. That child had problems. She had issues. Now, there is one part of this study that I do want to point out, that at this point, it does impact all women. So this, I can just say, is a message given to all women that I don't care what ethnicity you are, this always happens. So there is a response to the negative consequences that are likely to befall a woman in our society who displays confidence in her ability. Okay. Margaret Mead has noted that the successful or independent woman is viewed as a hostile and destructive force within society. Mm-hmm. Mead's observation that for a woman to succeed in our culture is indeed a fearsome venture. Homer indicates that many women have motive to avoid success out of fear that they will be rejected or considered less feminine if they do succeed. All right, now we're not going to talk about how this regime wants to walk back everything that women have worked for.
Yeah.
Everything. Because that still holds true.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned, Aicila, that if you were to say something in an assertive manner, you will be labeled. Mm-hmm. Let a gentleman do the same thing, and it's seen as heroic.
He's a confident leader, and I'm difficult or bossy. Mm-hmm. Especially when I am the boss, that's even more confusing.
Right?
I was supposed to tell you what to do. It's my job.
Like, my job.
Not like, we know this is the task that needs to happen. Do your part, right? Like,
this is it. So let me go into this really quick. So I want to talk about what's normal. All right. That's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about what's normal. It is normal to have good days and bad days. I'm a high achiever. I can say that right now. I'm a high achiever. I'm not high maintenance. Okay, maybe some food, maybe some certain dishes. If you don't get it right, it's not working out. Okay. We're not high maintenance. Really, we're really not high maintenance. But I am a high achiever. There are moments when I'm like, I don't know if I can do it. There are moments when I feel like I'm not sure. That's normal. And what concerns me is somebody in 1981, because it was a phenomenon in 78, and then in 81, someone got wind of it and took off, made it into a syndrome and started pumping it out into the universe. And people said, oh my God, that's me, because someone told you, oh, you have imposter syndrome. I actually had a lady in my photography class. She said, Gwendolyn, I am certain you don't suffer from imposter syndrome. I was like, I don't even believe in it. So yeah, no, I don't have that. No, don't have it. It is normal. What concerns me is we took normal emotions, anxiety, nervousness, jitters, like all the things, and made it seem as if something's wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with you. We all go through it. Now, let me tell you real quick, since we're live, right now, everybody knows I stutter. There is nothing worse than trying to get out 66 and 67 during a podcast. It makes my tongue gets thick, right? We all have it. Every single person has it. That is normal. It's being human. If you were not to be nervous, if you were not to feel any kind of anxiety, like, I'm going to go ask out this chick. Here I am. Suave dude, I'm gonna go ask out this chick. Wouldn't you be nervous that she might say no? If you go in for a job interview, aren't you like a little nervous? Like, I hope I do well. I hope they like me. I hope I'm not sweating too much. Right?
Yeah.
New school. Lunchtime. Oh, I don't want to eat by myself. Oh, I gotta find somebody who looks kind that I could. That is life. That's living. Is it not? Or am I the weird one in the room?
That's not why you're weird.
She said, that ain't it, G. That's not why you're weird. Thank you, ma'am. These are normal things. Now, I promised a video from a fellow associate friend who came on to the show a few years back, and he talked about imposter syndrome, right? So let me play that for you really quick. Hold, please hold. And I haven't built that support system to get myself together. So, I mean, you've been talking about self-sabotage and how it shows up for us in our everyday lives. Let's talk about the advice that we have to get past it, because if you do have the person who has always been the savior, the person who's always taking care of other people because they're needed, and they have a hard time asking for help, being vulnerable, maybe it's procrastination, analysis paralysis, all these things that we do to get in front of what could be. And I will say, I remember telling somebody when they were asking, what were you afraid of? And there are a lot of folks who had mentioned how they were afraid of failure, which I just see as learning opportunities, but I was afraid of succeeding. Because what if this worked out for me and I couldn't keep up, or I couldn't meet someone's expectation? So I found myself not doing what I was supposed to do to put myself out there and keep the ball rolling. What advice do you have? I took it off, but I put it down, took it off. What advice do you have for those who are battling the self-doubt and these self-sabotaging behaviors?
Yeah. I really believe that imposter syndrome or the self-doubt is another form of protection. So my advice is to, first of all, pay attention to your thoughts. Not as a way to change them. This is not about changing our thoughts or changing beliefs, but just to notice that you will have a thought that is not grounded in the present moment. Right? So in your case, Gwendolyn, it's, what if I can't handle it? But that's not based on who you are in the moment. It's based on it's based on a inferior identity in comparison to a future moment that you don't know whether it's going to happen or not. Right?
Yeah.
And so what happens is you have the thought, you feel the discomfort in your...
Sometimes it's still here, so I'm like, yeah, let's try it. I mean, I was
yeah. We're not actually afraid of the unknown. We're afraid of what we project into the unknown.
Ooh.
Right? Because we face the unknown every day. We step out of our house, we get in the car, we drive somewhere. We have an expectation of how it's going to be, and so we're not reacting to it. But when we're stepping into fear of success, we're projecting our expectation. It's going to be too much, I won't be able to handle it. And because we don't know what to do with that, we haven't learned how to be with that, we hold back. We find other things to do, right? But I mean, you could equally have an expectation of being able to handle it when it arrives. You can have an expectation that it's all going to work out, and there may be hardships, but you'll figure it out, right? So that's equally possible, but we don't spend a lot of time giving ourselves that space to imagine that way, right? Because we have that protective mechanism alive and turned on of like, well, but what if, right? What if this goes horribly wrong? What am I going to do? I don't know. Well, I don't know how to handle it, so let's just do nothing.
I love how you said, let's just do nothing. I really appreciate it when Nat said that imposter syndrome is just a tool for protection, right? I can see how if we take that pathway, why people would wrap their arms around that, right? not that anything's wrong with them, but I'm trying to protect myself from something else that I am projecting that's not even real. That's not even rooted in what's really happening right here today. So there is a great speaker, Adam Smith. He talks about facts and feelings. Facts are not feelings. Feelings are not facts. And DS mentioned it earlier when he talks about growth mindset. He alluded to it. You need a new mindset. New mindset gives you new results, I have found. Now, my fear of succeeding, it's not really there anymore because I'm doing all the things. Aicila knows, when are we not doing something?
Ever.
we doing all the things that are gone because I'm only here for a limited time. I'm going to do all the things, like everything. There has to be a shift in mindset. And if I can piggyback on what you said earlier, Aicila, getting around people who will help you see that, I believe is key. I told somebody once, don't compare your mile 2 to my mile 20. We're not in the same place. We are not in the same place, right? And this society, because that's all I know, loves to compare people and put them up against each other.
Well,
if we think about, go ahead.
I'm going to say, I also sometimes, I think we need to not compare ourselves to ourselves, to this idea of who we think we're supposed to be or who we were 5 years ago. We have to be right here, right now, and recognize this is where I'm at, which means some things might be more developed and some things might be contracted, and that's okay. We don't have to get into this idea that where we were or where we're going to be is somehow better.
Right. I wholeheartedly. I always say, give yourself the space and grace to grow and learn. It's like you have to give yourself some room. But I also do believe there is a place of unlearning, because in school, they often do that comparison, right? They compare you to this kid and that kid. Even in the household, there's a place where they want to compare.
Yeah.
Right. Now, my mother has often talked about how she loves us all individually. She knows each of her 4, she knows what her kids are like. And there's never been you aren't like so-and-so and you're not like, I've never had it. Because I am not my sister. My sister had this great skill of drawing. Wonderful artist. Gwendolyn is a no. That is a no for Gwendolyn. Now, none of us can play sports. I mean, hey. She didn't have to worry about that. But we were each allowed the space to do what we wanted to do and come into our own, versus, well, why aren't you like so-and-so? What? Jonathan, you can't play. Okay, if you want to bring up the time you played Pee-wee football, there was football in junior high school. We can bring it up. I didn't want to bring it up. If you want to bring it, I can bring it. But I'm just telling you, we didn't do well in sports. There's not one sports medal. Let me count it. No. In the Houston household. No. Not a one. If I'm wrong, you let me know. I want a picture because I've never seen it. I also want to...
That is a sibling thing right there.
You're the one who started it. I also want to go here. We are what we think, right? And the people you surround yourself with makes all the difference. Makes all the difference. I am surrounded by really great, enlightening individuals who see futures that sometimes I haven't seen for myself. But we can talk about our dreams, and we're given the space to do that and to even live them out. We're like, you know what? If you want to work on something, let's do it.
Yeah.
I mean, you need people like that in your life.
No, it's true. You really, really need that. And if you don't have that, go find that.
Go find it. Nothing against the person who's like, yes, you do have imposter syndrome. Yes, you don't belong here. That's not your person. Those are not your people. And for me to even have this conversation the way I'm having it, tip of the iceberg, right? It is the tip. But there are some really evil people operating using everyday emotions, reactions, interactions not in your favor, giving you the message that you don't belong in this campus. Like, you must be special. How did you get here? Did you that's what they do. There's this whole deal of labeling people the DEI hire. Cut it out, right? Because again, the people currently in control, running a whole circus in DC, if that is the definition of competency, really, you can't be the imposter. Like, you cannot. I mean, look at that. Really. I mean, I'm like, maybe I should run for office because, hey.
Yes, absolutely.
Doesn't take much. Really, it doesn't take much to
make the job. That we all get agree.
Right? And if you really think about it, and I know for where we are, we get it. But people being given jobs because of who they are and what they look like, right? That's the whole deal about diversity, equity, and inclusion. You got the job because you're a woman, because you're Black, because you're Indian, because you're disabled, because you're a veteran, right? It's like, no, you got the job because of what you look like. Because any other person would recognize you don't have the skills to have this job, let alone probably any other job.
Yeah.
Just saying, look at what's going on around you and then look in the mirror and say, how can I be the imposter because of this? Really? Cut it out. So as we wrap this up, I want to leave two more things with you. Life begins at the end of your comfort zone. Do not step out of your comfort zone. Expand it, right? Get to learning, get to living. You got some dreams, go for them, right? It's not what's the worst that could happen. It's what's the best thing that could happen.
Yeah.
Got to shift your mind. You got to get out of what people are. Let them get out of your head. And before we go, Aicila, so they can connect with you, any preference?
I am more interactive on LinkedIn than I am on the other two. But.
Well, there you go. So hook up with Aicila on LinkedIn. If you happen to be on Instagram or YouTube, you can find her at Guuuuurl. Right?
I still post there. I'm just not quite as engaged. I'm kind of a little off the social media in general.
We still like having you there though. We still like having you there and like what you're putting out, and we want to support it. So make sure that if you are there, that you go ahead and subscribe to her channel, link up with her on LinkedIn, and you can probably follow her on Instagram as well. As for me, I got the email list. I put out an email. I did one was it this week? Oh yeah, I did one this week. It's like once a month, but it's always really good stuff. It's good for the soul. It's good for the soul stuff. I'm not trying to give you like all kinds of other like wonky things. Not doing that. That we're not doing. But I will say this, Aicila, thank you for rolling through, helping me stay here because, sometimes my mouth gets me in trouble.
Thank you for having me. It's always an honor to be on your show and to do something with you.
And I will say this, people, as we go and enjoy the weekend, be safe, all right? Find you some good people. If you need some good people, you can always email me. I am available, but we'll see you next week. Next week, we are doing life lessons from Master Yoda, because May 4th is coming up. Now, if y'all know anything about Star Wars, you know anything about Master Yoda was giving some lessons. He was giving some lessons. That is next Friday. All right, see you all. Hey, it's G. Thank you for watching this episode of Guuuuurl Listen. Be sure to catch me every Friday at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. And while you're here, I cordially invite you to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. See you all next week.